Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the question, can your relationships affect how long you live, your longevity, and your health? I checked out the research on this question and I have some answers for you today, so let's just get straight into it. So let's start with romantic relationships and then we'll go into friendships and then we'll kind of wrap it up with the takeaways. In romantic relationships, being married has long been associated with greater health across different cultures and countries. It's associated with lower alcohol consumption and drug use, longer life expectancy, and those who have never been married have the lowest life expectancy. In other words, being married historically has been very beneficial for people, although new research suggests that this may be very gender-based, which we'll get to in a second. Alternatively, not being married can be a marker of loneliness and poor health outcomes. Basically, if you're not married, it could mean that you don't have that primary attachment with someone, that primary social bond, and you're feeling lonely, particularly if you're also lacking other types of relationships, which, let's be honest, a lot of people do. Like, sure, in adolescence, early adulthood, people are branched out, have lots of friends, but as they get deeper and deeper into their lives, a lot of people mostly stick to just their family and their partner. And for people that don't have that, being single could be a sign that they have no one. However, the one risk factor of lower health that people who are married do not have an advantage over is that people who are married tend to have more weight gain over time. And we suspect that this is because people don't have to present themselves in accordance to beauty standards and basically market themselves as a desirable partner because they already have someone at home. They can kind of afford to loosen up adhering to beauty standards. Now, I mentioned gender is really important here, and I do want to come back to that. So it seems that men reap far greater benefits to being married than women do. So we hypothesize that there are two reasons for this. One is that men mostly don't have as many social connections outside of their romantic relationship, and so if they don't have that romantic relationship, oftentimes they're lacking in social connection overall. And the second reason is that women in romantic partnerships tend to take on household chore inequality, which results in more fatigue, more stress, lower quality of life, and therefore poorer health outcomes. Whereas if they were single, they wouldn't be trying to fix things for two people. They would only be taking care of one person's responsibilities and messes, and therefore being in a romantic partnership could actually be worse for women long term. Some studies show that women's health is mostly unaffected by marriage, and middle-aged married women may be at even higher risk of physical and mental conditions than single women their age. And like I said, newer research suggests that actually women who are unmarried tend to be happier than women who are married. Unmarried and childless women are the happiest subgroup in the population. They are more likely to live longer than their married and child-rearing peers. So we see kind of contradicting research here. On one hand, we see that yes, people who are unmarried tend to fare worse, but women who are unmarried actually tend to fare best. And so it very much depends on gender and also the study that you're looking at. We clearly have a lot more research to do in this area. All in all, to say, does that mean that you shouldn't get married even if you want to? Or does that mean that if you're a woman, you shouldn't get married? Absolutely not. The quality of the relationship is extremely important. There is some research to show that low quality relationships do not offer the same health benefits as high quality ones. In fact, they may trigger inflammation, especially in women. A woman's life expectancy gets shorter the greater her age difference with her husband, and a man's life expectancy grows the younger his wife is. So we also see an age-related intersection here as well. It makes sense that a man with a younger wife would live longer because she is healthier, stronger physically, and therefore able to sort of take on that caretaking role. I saw it growing up. My grandparents had a pretty considerable age gap, and even though my grandpa was an incredible person, I definitely saw the toll that it sort of took on my grandma for her to take on a caretaking role even while she herself was aging. As for why a woman's life expectancy goes down the more of an age gap there is in any direction with her husband, there are a lot of possible reasons for that. One is that there is a social judgment there. If a woman is with a much older man, she's often seen as a gold digger. If she's seen with a much younger man, she's seen as a cougar. It's very much frowned upon. There can be power imbalances at play if a woman is with an older man. There can be conflict because of being at different stages of life. She could again be forced to take on a caretaking role for an older husband. So there are a lot of different reasons why an age gap in either direction tends to not be beneficial for women's life expectancy. That's for romantic relationships, and now let's talk about friendships. People who are socially isolated have a 91% increase in their mortality rate. This exceeds other known risk factors such as smoking and is comparable to obesity and physical inactivity as a risk factor. In lab rats, it increases the incidence of mammary tumors, compromises their immune response to stress, and in humans, it can have similar reactions on immune, neuroendocrine, and metabolic pathways that cause cardiovascular, neoplastic, and aging-related diseases. In other words, not surrounding yourself with social support can literally contribute to your death. But again, the quality of those relationships is really important, because if you have very high strain, high conflict, low quality relationships, that can also create chronic stress, which accumulates over time and starts increased risk of inflammatory and stress-related diseases, all these cascades of negative health outcomes. Usually it takes decades to happen, so the good news is that if you start working on this now, you could prevent it later on. If you are starting to have high-strain friendships, but you decide to put those aside, you could be doing your future self a favor in terms of health and longevity. Now, previous research was all cross-sectional, correlational, and we couldn't infer causality from it. But there's this one really interesting study that did actually find a causal link between social relationship patterns and health and longevity. In this research study, social integration was found to protect health and promote longevity. Being embedded in social networks seems to be especially important during adolescence and early adulthood, when forming those social relationships is really pivotal. As we all know, there is nothing that a teenager wants more than to belong to a social group. The evidence found that even those adolescent years can contribute to metabolic and cardiovascular functioning if no symptoms of health issues are present. So even having those relationships really early on can protect you later on before you have even any health concerns. And in your midlife, maintaining social connections is vital for protecting your health and slowing down the aging process. But the size of the social network ceases to be very important. It's more about the quality of your relationships than about the quantity, at least in mid-adulthood. And then in later adulthood, older adults who are socially connected experience fewer diseases, hypertension, and obesity. Social connectedness seems to exceed diabetes in terms of importance as a risk factor. So what are the takeaways of all this research, which, by the way, I will link all of it down below. If you are a teenager, finding a group of friends is crucial to your longevity. Being able to be connected can have consequences even further down the line for you. Once you get to mid-adulthood, quality of those connections is far more important than quantity. In later adulthood, staying socially connected is also super important to offsetting disease and death, especially when you're starting to have some health issues. That can be really important. If you are a man, being in a romantic relationship is hugely beneficial to your health and longevity, but if you are not in one, you should at least stay socially connected with friends. If you are a woman, we're not really sure. It could really go either way. It could be helpful. It could actually make you live less, depending on the quality of your relationship in particular. If it is an equal relationship, if there are power imbalances, if there is a significant age gap. These are all things that, unfortunately, although you might not want to hear it, do play a role in your longevity and health. And either way, regardless of your gender or demographics or anything, the quality of a relationship, romantic or otherwise, is far more important than just being in one for the hell of it, because high conflict, high strain is very detrimental, and the further you can extract yourself from those really toxic relationships, the more you tend to see positive health outcomes. And if you are single, if you were very socially connected, you probably reap similar benefits to people who have a really positive romantic relationship. Let me know what you thought about this. Did you relate to it? Do you find that it applies to your personal life? Give it a thumbs up if you liked this video, and I'll see you soon.